Hi, my name is Debra Loder, and I'm the registered dietitian and dietary manager here at Wickenburg Community Hospital in Wickenburg, Arizona. And I welcome you today as we talk about health at every size. And that may kind of surprise you as a title, but several years ago, Dr. Linda Bacon wrote a book called Health at Every Size, and this concept and both the health at every size and the acronym HAES, which we call Haze, are both trademarked. So I want you to know that what I'm talking about is trademarked, and that there is a book called Health at Every Size. I'll talk about a couple of other books that are out there on the market that you might be interested in looking at. A lot of registered dietitians ask their clients to read Health at Every Size when it's time when the client's asking to lose weight. So that's it is a really interesting and very important book if you're thinking about losing weight, because as we've talked about before, and I talked about this often with my clients, is that diets don't work. And what I'm talking about are the diets like the Jenny Craig and a lot of the grapefruit diet, the cabbage soup diet, paleo. A lot of those things, while they may work for someone, they're not guaranteed to keep the weight off, because there's a lot of evidence out there that shows that people who lose a lot of weight gain back that weight once they stop following that strict program they're on. And that strict program that they're on not only helps them lose weight, but it challenges them in terms of emotion and stress, because we know that going on a diet and being restrictive affects not only our metabolism and our ability to lose weight, but it affects our emotional state, it affects our psychological state. And we'll talk a little bit about this as we go along through today's presentation. So, Health at Every Size supports people in adopting health habits for the sake of health and well-being, not just for weight control. So we're talking about the holistic, the whole body, soul, mind, heart, everything. So that's what the Health at Every Size concept supports. So let's talk a little bit about what is weight and health. Health depends on weight is one of the things that the media tells us. If we're thin, we're healthy. If we're fat, we're unhealthy. You know, there's also some in the media, if you're smart, you're thin. If you're not so smart, you're heavy. So there, you know, that's out there in the media, and we have there's a lot of bad connotations with obesity. And what I want to talk to you about today is that health is more than just your weight. There's a lot of things factoring into your health. It's not just your weight. And health is about more than just diet and exercise. There are a lot of other things included in health that we'll talk about. So let's talk about what defines health and weight. There are things like our soul, our spiritual, our psychological, and our genetics that are all included in health and weight. Genetics plays a big role in our health. You know, I'm sure that most of you know someone who is a very maybe very small person, maybe very thin, and then they get heart disease. And we wonder, well, why? They're in perfect health. But that's where genetics comes into it, because a lot of health conditions are genetically, people can be genetically predisposed to those. So we need to remember those things when we talk about health. What we use to define weight traditionally is the body mass index. And the body mass index is limited because it doesn't take into account the muscle. It's a number based on height and weight, but it doesn't take into account how someone is muscular. And we know that muscle weighs more than fat. So a bodybuilder, for example, who has a lot of muscle, we could figure his or her BMI, and because they're so muscular, they weigh more, and we might see the BMI might say that they're overweight or even obese, when in fact they are not. They're just real muscular. So that's one of the things that we have to look at when we define weight and health by the BMI. So the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention says obesity related conditions include heart disease, stroke, type 2 diabetes, certain kinds of cancers. Some cancers are linked to weight, and a lot of these are, these are life-ending causes of death, and so we have to take that into consideration. But we also have to take into consideration that when the CDC says that, it's a correlation, not a causation. So what I mean is, we see that there is a correlation between obesity and heart disease, but obesity may not actually cause the heart disease. The heart disease could be caused from genetics. So that's where we have to be careful when we talk about causation versus correlation. There is that association, and when some people may lose weight and then they decrease their risk for diabetes or their risk for heart disease. So there is that correlation, and health does play a part in that. I'm sure you probably have heard of Paula Deen. Paula Deen is a famous cooking show personnel, and she was quite heavy at one time and was diagnosed with diabetes, type 2 diabetes. Well, she changed her cooking habits. She changed the way that she prepared her food, went more to broiling and sautéing, started incorporating more fruits and vegetables into her diet, and really paid attention to what she was eating and how she was cooking. And she lost 30 pounds, and she got her diabetes under control. So which is it, though? Is it because she lost the weight, or is it because she changed her eating habits, ate less fat, especially saturated fat, and also started walking 30 minutes a day? So what is it? We don't know. It could be it probably is a combination of both. She changed her eating habits. She ate more fruits and vegetables, which I've talked to you about before, with the fiber in fruits and vegetables especially, and in whole grains. That fiber helps control not only heart disease but diabetes. It helps control blood glucose. So it may have been that Paula lost the weight because she changed her eating habits and started walking every day, but it also may be that it was not because of the weight loss, it was because of her change in lifestyle. So once again, calories in equals calories out. That's the way that we lose weight. We lose weight by not eating more calories than our body needs. But we have to also remember that genetics plays a part in this. Diseases and drugs play a part in this. Some drugs cause us to gain weight, and so a lot of people don't like those drugs. Steroids, for example, can cause some people to gain some weight, and so we have to take that into consideration when we're looking at weight. We also have to take into consideration the environment. What is the environment in which this person lives? If we look at Native Alaskans, they tend to be carry more fat on their body, and is that because they need the extra insulation because they live in such a cold climate? So that's where we have to really keep things individualized. So let's think about all of the diets that we've heard of. There's Slim Fast, which is a diet drink that you drink instead of a meal. So it's like a meal replacement. It's lower in calories, lower in sugar and fat. But what does it do when we just have a glass of Slim Fast for lunch? You know, that's not a real meal. And so we'll talk a little bit about what happens when people do this. We'll talk about some of the really high protein, low carbohydrate diets, and what those kinds of diets do is they cause us to go into a state of ketosis, which can be dangerous, and it can also affect us, our emotions a lot, because of those ketone bodies being excess in our bodies. We talk about Jenny Craig. I had a patient just recently who had been quite successful on Jenny Craig, and she said, I just can't do it anymore. She said, I just can't do those prepackaged meals. I want to learn how to eat and keep my weight off without using Jenny Craig foods. And so what I helped her with was with cooking techniques. We talked a lot about, you know, eating more fruits and vegetables and whole grains, but we also talked about not eliminating everything altogether. She said that one of the things that was really hard for her is that when she was on Jenny Craig, she craved all the time chocolate, and that's because she didn't have access to chocolate by using the Jenny Craig meals. Oh, she had some things like brownies and things, but she said that they weren't the kind of chocolate that she was craving. And so what I encouraged her to do is give in to those cravings sometimes. Sometimes if you have a handful of chocolate, you're done. That's it. That's good enough. Sometimes it's not. And so we'll talk a little bit more about craving in a few minutes. So what does dieting mean? Well, if we look at New Oxford's American Dictionary, it says, restrict oneself to small amounts or special kinds of food in order to lose weight. Example, it is difficult to diet. It is indeed difficult to diet because what we're doing is we're restricting. We're not giving in to just eating for pleasure, basically. And what we're talking about, it's not just the fad diets that are out there. It's not. It even can be just going on a sensible eating plan if we restrict the things that we crave. And so that's where you've heard me say before, all things fit into a healthy diet when we incorporate balance, variety, and moderation. So that's where we have to go with this, is to let ourselves have the chocolate or a soda once a month or whatever it is that we crave. And you may say, okay, well, if I crave something and I give in to that craving, I won't be able to stop. Well, you probably will be able to stop, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes when we talk more about craving. So several years ago, these statistics are from back in 2011, the dieting industry was a $61 billion a year industry. And so if people are spending that much money on diets and the obesity rate is still rising, what does that say to us? That the diets aren't working. If people were spending that much money and they were being successful in losing weight and keeping it off, first, it wouldn't be such an expensive industry, and second, we would have fewer obese people in this world. So when we talk about losing weight, weight-focused interventions, when we talk about eating, exercising for the sole purpose of losing weight, it can contribute to weight cycling. Weight cycling is like what happens with yo-yo dieting. You lose weight, you gain it back. You lose weight, you gain more back. You lose weight, you gain more back. And so that's weight cycling. And weight cycling can be really hard on the body. It can cause an increased risk for osteoporosis. It can cause psychological stress. It can increase your anxiety about weight loss and just about your weight. It can lead to eating disorder behaviors. It can actually lead to weight gain because of the body's response to that, going into kind of a starvation mode during the diet. It can lead to stigmatization against individuals who are obese. So there's a lot that can happen when we're just focused on losing weight and looking at health. So health at every size is a non-diet approach. Health at every size, or Haze, supports people in adopting health habits for the sake of health and well-being, not just for weight control. So Haze encourages eating in a flexible manner that values pleasure and honors internal cues of hunger, satiety, and appetite. So what that means is eating is flexible. You look at your hunger cues, you look at your fullness cues, you look at what it is, the pleasure of eating, because eating should be pleasurable. If we are only eating broccoli, and we don't really care for broccoli, but that's what the diet says you have to eat, then you get no pleasure, and that can lead to anxiety, it can lead to depression. So eating without a diet approach can really help with that. Haze also encourages us to find joy in moving our bodies, not just running in order to burn calories. You may have said, or you may have heard someone else say it, oh, I'll have this cookie, or I'll have this brownie, and then tomorrow I'll add 15 minutes to my morning walk. Well, that's just eating that brownie and then punishing oneself by making oneself walk farther, and sometimes then you don't do that second day anyway. So we want to get away from that mentality where if we eat something bad, then we have to punish ourselves by exercising more. Physical activity should be enjoyable. When you do heavy exercise that you're not enjoying and you're just doing it in order to burn calories, you tend to not stick with it. So it's really important to find something that you love to do, to be active. I've heard people say, well, I just put on music and I dance around the house. It's a great form of exercise. You don't have to go to the gym. You don't have to go outside on a walk. You can just exercise. There's exercise videos. Some people love those exercise videos that are out there, or exercise classes on TV, because you can be in the privacy of your own home and you may feel more comfortable doing that, but that may not work for everyone. Stationary bikes for some people are a great option for the same reason, privacy of your own home. But a lot of us tend to use the stationary bike more as a clothes rack than a bike. So for those people, maybe it would be better to have a bike and be out riding out in the fresh air. So you need to find something that you enjoy and not just exercise for the sake of losing weight. So Haze also encourages accepting and respecting the natural diversity of body sizes and shape. So not only the size, whether one's large, but the shape. Some people discriminate against people who have a lot of belly fat. Some people discriminate against women who have larger hips. And there are a lot of really ugly jokes out there that people tell when they're describing someone that they may see at the grocery store. I'm sure you've probably seen a lot of things on the internet, showing people and how they're dressed when they're in Walmart, for example. So the Haze idea is weight neutral. It encourages healthy habits and attitudes. it takes the focus off of just weight. It lets the person settle their weight where it wants to settle. We all have our, I don't really like the term ideal weight, but we do have a weight that is ideal for us in terms of health and well-being. So Haze also supports people to feel good about themselves no matter what the outcome is. So when traditional diets and fad diets, if you're not successful, what happens? You feel bad, you get depressed, you're angry at yourself. So the Haze concept helps us feel good, whether we, it may be 10 pounds that we lose, and that's good, that's a great thing, but we feel better and we are enjoying what we're eating, and we're eating more healthfully. So when we're going on a diet, the diet paradigm is that, as far as weight's concerned, we aim for a certain weight. Another client that I just saw not too long ago was what I thought at a pretty good weight for her. And I asked her, what is your goal? What is your health goal? And her health goal was focused just on weight. And she wanted to lose 20 more pounds, even though she had lost 30. And so I encouraged her to not be too strict, because I didn't want her to, kind of beat up on herself if she didn't reach that. I explained to her that it may be that she is where she needs to be. She was discouraged because she had stopped losing. She was kind of at a plateau. So it's really important when you reach that plateau to understand that that may be your body's perfect weight. And so be gentle on yourself and see what happens, and not blame yourself. When we look at the diet paradigm, we talk about food, and foods are either good or bad, legal or illegal, or should or shouldn't. So you probably said this or heard somebody say, well, that food's bad for me, or that's not one of my legal foods, or that's not one of my approved foods, or I shouldn't be eating this. I shouldn't be eating this brownie. So it's that negativity. It also talks about quality versus quantity, and that those are determined by external sources like calories, grams, or exchanges. So when in the diet paradigm, we look at those, the food being, well, I'm eating too much, that's too many calories, that's too many exchanges, I don't have that many exchanges left for today. One popular diet program, it's counting points. So those are the things that the diet paradigm shows. And then as far as physical activity, it shows that we have to exercise only to lose weight. But when we look at a non-diet approach, we see that the body will seek its natural weight, and when you learn to eat in response to cues, eat when you're hungry, stop eating when you're full or satisfied. All foods are acceptable. Like I said, a brownie's perfectly fine. When you incorporate it into a healthy meal plan, that's fine. Let yourself enjoy that. And you may have known someone in your life that you may need 6 chocolate chip cookies before you feel happy, and someone else may be able to eat 1 chocolate chip cookie and that's it. And you may say, well, I would never be able to eat 1 chocolate chip cookie, but some people can, and that's because they have a really good relationship with food. They let themselves have the chocolate chip cookie. They haven't ever restricted themselves or disallowed themselves from having it. And then with the non-diet approach, it's also aimed to be more active and have fun with your activity rather than focusing just on burning calories and losing weight. There have been several randomized controlled trials that show that the Haze approach does help with physiological measures such as blood pressure and blood glucose, blood lipids. The Haze approach, when someone is really using the Haze approach, they have healthy behaviors, no eating disorder behaviors or anything like that. And also the psychological outcomes are better. So am I saying that Health at Every Size is saying, well, you can follow this approach and just eat whatever you want? Well, no. But what the approach takes away is that need to be so controlling over the food and your exercise. In some of the research that supports the Haze approach, the diet group restricted their calories. They had to write a food diary. They had to read food labels and look at fat grams. They talked about exchanges, about the benefits of exercise, and they were encouraged to walk at a certain intensity, where the non-diet intervention was to work on accepting their bodies and their self-worth, on techniques to focus on internal cues versus external cues. So we'll talk a little bit about mindful eating. Nutrition effects of food choices on well-being, so how nutrition, like eating plenty of fiber, helps with constipation and helps with lowering your blood lipids and your blood glucose, and how certain vitamins and minerals help to fight diseases, all of those phytonutrients that we've talked about in the past, and how they help fight inflammation. And then they also had the intervention of activity that allowed them to enjoy their bodies. And what was found is in the diet group, there was no improvement of their depression or body image. Even though they may have lost weight, their depression, their body image, and their self-esteem didn't show much improvement after 2 years, whereas the non-diet approach showed significant improvement at 2 years. As far as labs, the diet group didn't show any significant changes at their 2-year follow-up, whereas there were significant changes in total cholesterol, LDLs, blood pressure, etc. in the non-diet. And then the dropout rate in the diet group was 41%. So 41% couldn't maintain that lifestyle, whereas the non-diet approach had only an 8% drop. So this shows that by being mindful and not focusing so much on calories and on good and bad foods and on weight loss can help us regulate our weight and also be happy about that. So there are some myths about Haze. One myth is that Health at Every Size message that everyone is healthy regardless of weight. That's not at all what Haze is supporting. Not everyone may be at the weight that is right for them. However, efforts to lose weight are often futile and can be harmful to the body when they experience that weight cycling. So the Haze paradigm supports people in making good health choices regardless of size. So eating healthy foods, getting healthy activity. Another myth is that Health at Every Size message is that people shouldn't be concerned about nutrition and activity. Once again, that's not what Haze is saying. Haze is saying that eating and exercise are important components of health. We're just taking the focus off of weight. When eating is based on internal cues, certain foods make you feel good while others don't. And then Haze also encourages variety. And then another myth is people who eat based on cravings will eat junk food all the time. And the fact is, it's the anticipation of dieting and guilt around eating that leads to the feeling of being out of control with food, because humans crave variety. So I'm going to talk a little bit now about developing good, I think I am, a good relationship with food and exercise. So that is what the Health at Every Size is developing a healthy relationship with food and exercise. Haze supports people to adopt healthy habits for the sake of health and well-being rather than just weight control. Haze encourages a flexible manner of eating that values pleasure and honors internal cues of hunger, satiety, and appetite. Haze also helps find joy in moving one's body and become more physically vital, and accepting and respecting the natural diversity of body sizes and shapes. So when we're talking about dieting, we have this black and white thinking. I feel like eating chips, but I should probably eat carrots. I can eat this because I've been good all week. I can splurge and have a banana split because I was good all week. I can eat this if tomorrow I run an extra mile. So I can eat the banana split today, but tomorrow I'll have to run that extra mile. I blew it today, so I guess I'll start my diet tomorrow. Or why even bother eating this salad because it has all this fattening dressing on it? So that's the black and white thinking. So what we want to do is talk more about the gray thinking. But what happens when you just kind of think about what happens to when you label foods good and bad? What do you think about that food? You know, do you associate feeling guilty if you eat the bad food? And do you associate feeling good about yourself if you eat the good food? Well, that's where that diet mentality can really lead to anxiety and depression. So let's talk a little bit about the gray thinking. So maybe you would think, I kind of want something crunchy and salty, so I think I'll have some carrots and some potato chips. And that's going to satisfy both of those cravings. If you're craving something salty and crunchy, you can have just a few chips, and you can tend to be more satisfied with that if you give in to that. Or another thing in gray thinking, pizza sounds good to me, so I think I'll have pizza, but I also know that Debra told me I should incorporate more fiber in my diet, so in order to do that, I'm going to have a big salad with my pizza. And what happens then is you may end up eating less of the pizza and enjoying the salad. Or Honey Nut Cheerios are too sweet, so regular Cheerios are too boring, so maybe I'll mix them together and I'll have a bowl of Honey Nut and regular Cheerios, because then it's not so sweet, but the boring ones are sweetened a little bit. Or I feel like being active, but I don't feel like running today, so I think I'll go for a walk. Give yourself permission to change it up and not run or not go to the gym, but stay home and dance in the living room. So when we think about internal versus external cues, internal cues are what we're born with. When a baby's born, most children respond to eating because of cues. An infant cries, and that says, I'm hungry. You feed the baby the bottle or the breast, and the baby gets full. And not only does the baby stop eating, but it will push you away. It won't let you put that bottle back in the mouth because it is totally full. Children, a toddler, if they, when you see a toddler in a grocery cart at the store and they're screaming, they're probably hungry. And so if the mom gave them something to munch on, they might calm down because that they were so hungry and they need to be filled up. And a toddler, as most of you probably know, when they're done eating, and they're not going to take another bite. And we can do a great deal of harm by saying, oh, you need to take another bite, or oh, you need to eat this, and if you eat this, I'll give you a cookie. Because that toddler has already said, I'm done eating, and by offering the cookie, if you eat more, just adds the calories and that they don't really need, that they have already been satisfied. So we're born to be intuitive about eating by focusing on fullness cues, cravings, flavors, a number of things. But what happens is we lose those cues when parents start pressuring the children to eat the cookie, eat the broccoli so you can have the cookie. Internal cues for hunger, or for eating, are hunger, fullness, cravings, flavors. You smell something that smells so good. You know, one of the things that is an internal cue for me is if I smell popcorn, I pretty much need to have popcorn because it smells so good, and I get a craving for it when I just smell it. External cues that we talk about are calories. Oh, I can have this because look, it says it's only 100 calories for this little pack, so I can have it. I can have this because it doesn't have too many fat grams. Or I can have this because I haven't met my exchanges for the day or my points for the day. So that's where, those are the external cues that we see. So let's talk about hunger and fullness. We've talked before about hunger and fullness and intuitive eating. And what intuitive eating is really getting to know your body and know your cues, really getting into your feelings. And then you consider your hunger on a hunger scale from very, very hungry or starving to stuffed. So let's say 1 to 10. A 1 is I'm starving, and a 10 is after Thanksgiving dinner when you go collapse on the couch. So when you eat that way, you can start eating when you're not starving. Because what happens if you're starving? I know you're probably all saying something to yourself. What happens when you're starving? Well, a lot of you are probably saying, if I'm starving, then I overeat, and then I feel stuffed. And that's what happens to us. If we get too hungry before we eat something, then we tend to overeat, or we eat something that we may not feel good about eating. Eat something that we may not have eaten if we start eating when we're just slightly hungry. And then the other thing is, then when you're eating, it's really to get in tune with what's happening in your body. How are you feeling? Is that lightheadedness that you felt as you started eating, is it going away? Is your stomach starting to feel full? Are you losing interest in what you're eating? So those are kind of the things that you look at when you start judging your fullness. You pay attention to all of those cues that are going on. So, you know, but what keeps us from stopping when we're full? Well, a lot of things. I bet you have some answers. What keeps you from stopping eating when you're full, when you're at your grandma's house on Thanksgiving? You don't want to hurt grandma's feelings, so you keep eating because you know that she loves it when you eat her pecan pie. Or maybe it's because you were raised in a family of clean your plate parents, where you sat at the table until you finished eating because wasting food was not okay. And that could be one of the reasons that you keep eating even though you're full. One of the things is taste. You may think, oh, this tastes so good, I just can't stop eating it. So even though you're full, you're enjoying the flavor of it so much that you don't stop eating. Or what if I never have this food again? What if I never get to eat brownies like these? What if I lose this recipe? And so you tend to eat them more and more and more. So those are some of the things that stops us from eating when we're too full. And then on the other hand, what keeps us from eating when we're hungry? Well, that can be very complex. Fear of gaining weight, I'm not going to eat breakfast even though I'm hungry, because if I eat breakfast, I might gain weight. Or maybe it's just poor planning on your part. You're starving, but there's nothing to eat. You're in the car, you're on the freeway out in the middle of nowhere, and you're starving. So you're hungry, but you have nothing there to eat. You haven't brought anything with you. You're busy. You just have too much to do, so you tend to just avoid thinking about your hunger, and so you don't eat. So those are some of the things some of the reasons that we get too hungry, and that we also can't stop when we're full. So it's important to remember to start eating when you're just slightly hungry, and then when you're comfortably full, say, I've had enough. And it is a way of becoming more in tune with your body, and help you feel less guilty about eating things. The other thing is, as much as possible, we need to keep food available. So talking about the car drive out on the freeway and no food around, when you leave the house, think about, where am I going to be when I'm hungry? So where am I going to be when I need something to eat? And think about it, and think about what's going to be available to you. If nothing's available, maybe you pack a snack to bring along with you. So planning can really help. Figure out some balanced meals and snacks, so that you don't have to think a lot when you go home at night. Have the food partially prepared and in the refrigerator, so you don't have to think, and then when you're hungry, you can get the meal on the table before you're totally famished. So those are some of the things to think about. Cravings. So we talked about cravings a little bit before, and cravings often include nutrient dense and non-nutrient dense food. So you can crave salad, you can crave brownies, but when you're following a health at every size belief, then it's permission to eat all the foods. So it helps you to explore your cravings without being judgmental about yourself. We can be trusted to have our cravings. I know some people say, if I give in to my cravings, then I'm just going to blow it. I'm just going to eat the whole bag of candy or whatever. But when you think about it, if you go on a road trip, let's say, and you're in restaurants every day, you eat breakfast in a restaurant, you eat lunch in a restaurant, you eat dinner in a restaurant. By the end of that road trip, what are you craving? I'm craving a big salad and a chicken breast at home in my own kitchen, because I'm tired of all of that heavier food. I'm ready to just eat some really yummy, healthy food. So that's what I'm craving. If you ate a pan of brownies every day for 2 or 3 days, what would you feel like eating on the 4th day? Would you want another pan of brownies? So think about that. So you can really trust your cravings. And so attend to your cravings. So what I mean by that is, ask yourself, do I want that just because I saw it? Do I want that pan of brownies just because I saw them there? Do I want it just to be polite? Am I going to eat that second helping of stuffing just because I don't want to hurt Grandma's feelings? Do I want to eat it just because it's free? When you go into one of the big box supermarket stores and they have all of the free samples around, are you eating those things just because they're free and you're getting a sample of something? Or what if you're eating it just because you paid for it? What if you are out to eat and you order something and you know that you can't take it home because you're not going home for 3 hours and it wouldn't be safe in the car? So you eat it and get too full just because you paid for it and you don't want to let it go to waste. Or is it because I want it because I'm craving it, because I really have a strong desire to eat that food? And that's when it's okay to give in to that craving. Knowing that you can trust yourself with the cravings. So if I told you today that you could no longer eat, let's say, ice cream starting tomorrow. So if I said, okay, you can't eat ice cream after tomorrow. No more ice cream for the rest of your life. What would you eat tonight? Chances are you would eat ice cream tonight. Not even because you were craving it, because there's that fear that you won't get to have it any longer. Another thing about cravings is that full permission to satisfy cravings means you can ask yourself what you feel like eating. Some days you feel like eating bacon. Some days you feel like eating broccoli. Other days you might feel like eating both. So when you're craving, you're giving yourself permission to eat your cravings, to satisfy those cravings, and to look at what is it that I really want to eat. So what foods do you feel out of control around? So what I mean is, you enter into the blank. I cannot keep blank in the house, or I'll eat the whole box or the whole container. So think about that. I can't keep M&Ms in the house because if I do, I'll eat the whole box or the whole container. But what would happen if you gave yourself full permission to enjoy as much as you want and when you want it? What would happen if you also stayed mindful during the process of eating those M&Ms? So you give yourself full permission to keep the M&Ms in the house, and you give yourself full permission to have them and whenever you want them. But while you're eating them, you're staying mindful. You're thinking about, am I getting full? Am I satisfied? Have I had enough? So if you're just taking a handful of M&Ms and stuffing them in your mouth, that's mindless. But if you're thinking about, okay, I'm feeling like I've had enough M&Ms, that's being mindful about how you're eating. So mindfulness is a very important concept in the Haze process. So once again, mindful eating is, before you eat, you have a mind-body check-in. What does my stomach say? What am I craving? How am I feeling? And then during eating, you say, is this satisfying the craving? Am I enjoying this eating experience? What is my stomach saying? What is my brain saying? Is the 10th bite as good as the first bite? You know, this is one of the things that I've seen about myself, is that first bite of lemon meringue pie is really, really good. But sometimes by the end of that, by the time I get to the end of the piece of lemon meringue pie, I'm feeling a little bit nauseous and I'm not liking it so much. And so I should stop eating it and not just keep eating it because it's there. So that's being mindful. Being mindful is also noticing how your whole body responds to food. Are you too uncomfortable because you're so full? Or are you lacking energy because you're hungry? Or is your blood sugar high or low? You feel fatigued from eating too much? Do you feel sleepy and kind of out of it because you're hungry? So those are the things that you need to notice when you're using mindful eating. When we eat emotionally, though, we eat for reasons other than hunger. We eat as a coping mechanism. We eat when we're not necessarily physically hungry. So we need to remember that mindfulness is the key. So does this really work? There is supporting research that people who give themselves full permission to eat and enjoy their food are less likely to eat in excess, less likely to engage in binge eating. They experience less guilt when eating. People who eat in response to hunger and fullness, such as intuitive eaters, have more positive self-esteem and are more satisfied with their bodies. Intuitive eating has also been associated with higher high-density lipoprotein, which is your good cholesterol. It has been associated with lower triglyceride levels. It's been associated with lower body mass index, or your BMI, and also lower overall cardiovascular risk. So intuitive eating, there is research that it works and it helps. So once again, as I kind of bring things to a close here today, I want to talk about a little bit more about the Haze, the health at every size definition, remembering that Haze supports people in adopting health habits for the sake of health. So the sake of health and well-being, remembering that, yes, we don't want you to just eat chocolate. We want you to eat fruits and vegetables, whole grains, lean proteins, lean dairies. It's not about just letting you go all out with whatever you want, but it's incorporating intuitive eating, incorporating mindfulness into your eating, into your food preparation, into your whole life, so that you feel good both physically, mentally, and emotionally. Eating is a big part of our lives, and eating is not just something that we do to nourish our bodies. Eating also nourishes our souls. It nourishes our whole life. And so incorporating good healthy habits like intuitive eating and mindfulness really can help not only with maintaining your health and weight, but also with maintaining your emotional and psychological self. So in closing, I just want to talk a little bit about some of the books that are available out there. Linda Bacon did write a book, and it's Health at Every Size, and it's available both online and in bookstores. Evelyn Tribole is a registered dietitian who wrote the book Intuitive Eating. It's a very good book. It's an easy read book, and I really always ask my patients when they want to lose weight to read this book. And then there are some other organizations out there. One is the Council on Size and Weight Discrimination. So the website for that is www.cswd.org. The Haze Community website is www.haescommunity.org. And if you didn't get that and you're interested in these websites, you can email me here at the hospital, and I'll be glad to send you that information. My email address here at the hospital is Debra, Debra, .Loder, Loder, @wickhosp.com. So it's WICKHOSP.com. And once again, you can always call the hospital. The main number is 928-684-5421, and ask for extension 3632, and that's my phone at my desk, and I'd be happy to talk to you about that. You could also call my scheduler if you're interested in making an appointment to talk more about your health, about weight loss, about just eating for health, about cooking techniques, anything like that. I'm available by appointment, and you can call my scheduler. Her number is 928-668-1811. So I enjoyed being here with you today. I hope that you found some usefulness out of this presentation. And we have some great things coming up in the future. So check our website, our hospital website, and also check our Facebook page so that you can find out what I'm doing next. And I hope you'll enjoy that as much as I've enjoyed being with you today. Thank you for tuning in, and have a great day. Stay healthy out there. Bye.